Hello, everybody. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to another episode of the Back of the Pack podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Walker. We are brought to you by OKKC Sports. Thank you so much for joining us. Got to let you guys know, I'm still totally buzzing from the Kansas City Marathon Expo and meeting so many people. We've gotten wonderful feedback on social media. People have been sending messages. The likes and stuff and everything are going up on the Facebook side. I think we're getting more listens. So to all of you who have been with us and the people who are joining us and everyone we met that weekend, thank you guys so very much. Your support means absolutely everything. And we are super thrilled that people are enjoying the show. And it's just, we're kind of having fun here in the running community. So thank you guys so very much. I wanted to lead the show with that. Next off, we're actually just one day away from finding out the ballot results for the London Marathon. So if you or anyone that you know went ahead and entered the ballot and is trying to get into the London Marathon, we should know in about 24 hours to 48 hours who's in and who's not. Of course, I threw my name in there. I don't at all expect to be chosen. I think I'm like 0 for the last 5. But if you threw your name in there, then of course I wish you nothing but the best of luck. And if you make it, please let us know. Send us a message or respond and comment to this post when it's this episode when it is shared. Let us know if you made it into London, because we would love nothing more than to really just cheer you on as you go through your training and then do that race. So another World Marathon Major is about to unleash the field. Let's see who's in and who's out. I fully expect to be out, but I'm hoping, dag nabbit. So this morning, or this weekend, I should say, was the Cliffhanger 5K. That is where I was at for my race this weekend, the Cliffhanger 5K, which is down off Cliff Drive in Kansas City, Missouri. Always a fun race. I like this race. I think the course is not a difficult one. There is one rather nasty hill in it, but overall, I think it's a pretty easy course. And so I did the race. My time was, again, okay. I was hoping for a little better, but that darn hill really got me. And like an idiot, I went out way too fast. So I didn't have the juice left at the end to really conquer the hill the way I wanted to, because in that first mile to mile and a quarter, I'm thinking, oh man, I'm fast. I am speed personified. Look at me go. I could be shooting for a new PR today. Let's go, baby. Oh no, there's a hill and I'm tired. Oh, so that's where I was at today. But again, my time was okay. Hopefully you guys did well in whatever race you were at this weekend. If you were at the Cliffhanger or if you're at the Mileage Monster or any of the other races around town, hopefully your race did well. But that's going to dive us into today's subject. And here, I'm going to preface this for everyone. All right, listen, for serious here. I am not trying to come off as a jerk. I certainly am not coming off as a perfect runner. I am none of these things. You're going to listen to this episode and you're going to think one of two things. You're going to think, whoa, this guy is a total jerk face and I don't like him anymore. Or you're going to think, this dude is spot on and he's saying the things that I would like to say to a lot of different people on race day. But I want to go over, because in the episodes we've done, and this is episode 30 something, we've never gone over racers etiquette. And I feel that this needs to be addressed because I about lost my friggin' mind this morning at this race. Racers etiquette, my friends. There are things as runners we need to do to make the running experience enjoyable for us and for our fellow runners. I get it. Since the Rona, it kind of feels like common courtesy is not really that common anymore. Again, you can think I'm a jerk or you can think I'm onto something here. Either way, I'm good. I think a lot of people have kind of gotten caught up in their own little worlds anymore because we spent so much time in isolation worrying about ourselves. Some of us have kept that mentality and we're having a difficult time remembering there are other people who inhabit this big blue marble of ours. And maybe we should go out of our way sometimes to make life a little easier for the other guy. Just a thought. But I can tell you exactly where in this race I had this thought. I am running. We're getting close to the home stretch, but not quite to the home stretch. I might be a quarter of a mile away from the finish line, maybe. No, I'm going to say a half mile. I'm a half mile from the finish line. And there's this kid, and I support kids doing races. Clearly, this kid had run away, not in a bad sense, but just during the course of the race, he has outrun the people he's doing the race with. This kid is completely oblivious to other runners around him. Yeah, he's looking back and he'll look at you, but that doesn't change where he's going. He's zigzagging all over the course. If he passes you, he gets back in front and basically is stopping in front of you, making you have to then pass him. And then he will pass you again. And he's still just all over the place, looking for the folks that he was doing the race with, checking behind him. And I get it. I understand. I know I sound like a jerk. But there was a point I'm like, kid, please, for the love of all that is holy, get out of my way. You are going to drive me insane if I, here in almost the finishing stretch, have to keep tap dancing around you. I feel like we're doing the do-si-do here, and get out of my way. And so it made me think, because a lot of times I go into a weekend like, boy, I don't know what I'm going to talk about on the podcast this week. And yet inspiration finds me. And boy, did it find me this morning with this kid who was about to drive me insane. And then we're not done yet. And again, I am not faulting the Cliffhanger run, not even a little bit. This just happens to be the race that I did where I happened to see some of these behaviors exhibited. They are not the only ones. This happens at most races. But another thing, so I finished the race. No problem. Okay. Yay. I get my little finisher's medal. You'll see that on Medal Monday on Instagram and Facebook. Woo. Yay. I get my water. I go, I use the restroom. Now, a buddy of mine was doing the race. Okay. So I'm going to hang out for my buddy to finish, of course. So I use porta potty. I put some stuff in my car. I'm at the finish line. I'm waiting for my buddy. All right. We're good to go. If you were at Cliffhanger, you might have seen this as well. People want to check their finishing time. They want to see if maybe they were an age division award winner. I hope that you were. They want to get their finishing time. They want to get their official time. They don't want to wait for the email to come out. They don't want to wait and have to check the website later. They just want to get it right then and there. Okay, that's cool. Like, hey, you do you. I set myself up for the text alerts, so they eventually text me with my finishing time. I'm good to go. The people were lining up at the table. And at one point, after the 10Kers all started finishing as well, the line kept growing. Now, I would think you're in the line, you would just kind of maybe eventually get that little angle in the line and kind of keep it along the side of the road, keep it in the grass, keep it, out of the way. But no, that's not the direction we decided to go this morning. The line keeps forming. The line stays perfectly straight behind the table. It's now taking up half of the course. We've got these people standing in line halfway out on the course as 5Kers and 10Kers are trying to finish their race. People are now having to go to the left to get around the ass end of this line of people wanting their finishing time so that they can get to the finish line. And I'm standing there looking with basically hands on my head in shock. Like, what are you doing? Get out of the way. People are trying to finish the race. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm completely out of line here. Maybe I'm out of touch. I don't know. But it seemed rather inconsiderate that you're going to put your line, the butt end of your line, on the course. Y'all, don't wait for someone to tell you to make, kind of snake it a little to the left. Get off the course. Let people finish unimpeded by you getting your finishing time. And again, to me, this just sounds like common courtesy. So it made me think, between this kid who just was constantly in my way to these people who were blocking the finish line, it's like, let's go ahead and do our episode and let's go over some racing etiquette. I'm not saying I'm going to touch on everything. I've found a few things. And of course, I'm bringing up, don't zigzag all over the course. Don't have your time checkers halfway onto the course blocking the finish line. You might have some that I don't mention. And if you do, by all means, share them. And we can come back to this conversation because I think racing etiquette is very important. Okay, you know it. If you've done enough races when someone is kind of breaking racing etiquette because it ticks you off. And it's just like, come on, people. Let's think here. Let's use our brains. Let's be nice to everyone so that everyone can have a good time. So the first thing I did, I'm going to go out here. I found a few lists. This is the guide to 5K race etiquette. So I'm going to read what people have written are 5K race etiquette kind of protocols, and then all the way up to full marathon race protocols. This one is called from realbuzz.com. That's where I got it. And we're just going to go over some of the things they say. And again, this is something I would never have thought of. But there is even race etiquette before the start of the race. And this is what they say. If possible, pre-register for the race. Again, seems simple enough. Pre-register so they don't have, the people trying to give out packets in the morning don't have to handle a race day registration. I get it. Sometimes race day registrations are, you have to. Like, you just decided that day you want to run a race. Or like my buddy who came into town, he decided, hey, I'll go with you and do the race. So he had to sign up on race day. So I get it. But they say, if possible, pre-register for the race. Even if they take entries on the day, this will help to prevent long lines of agitated runners and will relieve the pressure on the race organizers, the vast majority of whom are volunteers. Ensure that you arrive at the race venue in plenty of time so that you're not rushing to the start. You should aim to be at the start around 10 minutes before the scheduled start time, although you will need to allow longer for larger races. Okay. See, that seems simple enough, but it is something listed here as a 5K race etiquette. Their next one, race number. You should pin your race number onto your front so that it can be clearly seen by the race officials. Ladies, even if you are wearing a crop top, don't fold your number in any way that could lead to a disqualification. As tempting as it may be, especially if they are faster than you, don't use another runner's number without the permission of the race director. Yeah, okay. You really won't make yourself too popular if you run under the wrong name, because it means race organizers won't have your correct details in case of an emergency. Plus, you could also cause confusion with both the timing and result system. So, okay, I know that there's going to be people listening to this podcast who are going to, whatever, Kyle. That's what they're going to say right now. I see a lot of people who pin their bibs to the back of their shirt. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, if you're pinning the bib on the back of your shirt and you end up not getting accurate race results, that's, hey, that's what happens. They always say at all the races, pin it to the front. So if you're a newbie runner who's listening to the show, pin the bib on the front of your shirt. All right, let's just get in the habit of doing that. If you've been pinning it to your back for years and years, I'm not telling you how to live your life. This just says pin it to the front. That's what they said, okay? Don't yell at me. Next one, start line etiquette. Most race starts are seated. Around here, yes and no. So most race starts are seated with the faster runners positioned at the front of the field to ensure a safer and smoother start for all. Be realistic and honest with where you stand on the start line so that you don't impede the runners behind you. Don't try and push to the front if you're not going to be towards the front at the finish. This one is actually huge. And this is definitely one of my biggest pet peeves. So when I'm at a 5K, because I know I am middle to back of the pack, let's say, I am never at the front, but I don't ever want to be at the back. It annoys the living crud out of me when I have started a race, I am actively racing, and I'm already having to dodge walkers. If you want to come out and do a 5K and walk it, then gosh darn it, I applaud you. Come do a 5K. I want everyone to come do 5Ks. But know where you're at. If you plan on walking this race from start to finish, please line up towards the back. Pretty please. Sugar on top. I'll even throw a cherry in there. If you're trying to run and the start line is always a chaotic scene anyway, because you don't know what everyone's pace is. You don't know the people who are going to come firing out of the starting gate. And you don't know the people who are just going to be on the leisurely stroll from minute one. It's tough. So if you know you're going to be slow, now, I understand you get out there, you go out too fast, you get winded, maybe the knee doesn't feel right, and you want to take it to a walk, move to the side, stretch it out, whatever your case is. I understand there are exceptions to this rule, but I'm only asking very simply, if you know you're taking it slow, go towards the back, just so that the runners don't have to try and dodge around you and run into each other because they're trying to get left or trying to get right to get around you. That's all I'm asking. So the next one is don't be a hero. There are certainly no prizes for the fastest runner away from the start line, and nobody likes a hero in the first 200 meters of a race. An overzealous start can often result in you slowing down in dramatic and painful style later in the race, where you could potentially hold up other runners. Remember that your pacing misjudgment could ultimately affect other runners too, as well as ruining your own race. So this kind of goes along with the start line etiquette a little bit. Just know your pace, kind of know your limitations, know your area, know I'm going to be within 2-3 minutes of this time. And it'll help you kind of get lined up, especially if it's a race where they do list paces. If there's either smart pacers on the course or the signs that say, hey, if you run this pace, line up here. You run this pace, line up here. Well, if you know you're running a 12-minute mile and you're standing up there at the 6-minute mile pace, okay, clearly you're in the wrong spot, Chief. You might want to come back a little bit so that you're not trying to be a hero at the start and then people got to tap dance around you later. Next is obey the officials. Even if you're enduring a suffer fest, I like that, you should obey the race officials' instructions at all times. They're there for your safety. When you're working really hard, it's easy to become impatient and snappy. But remember that nearly all race marshals give up their time on a voluntary basis, and without them, the race wouldn't take place. That seems pretty self-explanatory. Be mindful of other runners. And this is what I wanted to knock that kid over the head with this morning. But again, he was a kid and it wasn't worth all that. This is particularly important if you're running on a lapped course or in a race with a mass field. If you're running with friends or club mates, then don't run any more than 2 abreast unless the road is very wide. If you do, you will impede runners who are trying to overtake you. And gosh darn it, this is correct. Can you guys tell, like, I've dealt with this a long time? There is nothing worse than when I'm doing a 5K, and let's say it's one that goes on a road that is still in use. The road is not closed. They have cones up. You get one lane. And you know that when you get one lane on a race, you don't even get that whole lane. Those cones are at least a good 2 to 3 feet inside the line. So 2 wide is maybe the best you can do. 3 wide. And then you get those groups of people who are running 3 wide. They are shoulder to shoulder from cone to curb. There is nowhere to go to get around them because goodness knows you can't go outside the cones to get around them. That's when the race marshal or race people yell at you. You don't want to hop up on the curb, jump in the grass, step in a pothole, twist an ankle, jack your knee, and then you're out. Folks, I love that you love running with your friends. I really do. Just be aware, if you are down to 1 lane action and it's a lane where you're not even getting the whole lane, can you guys kind of do the pyramid? Maybe 2 in front, 1 in back? You know, just give people the space to get around you without having to go out of bounds, putting themselves in danger of either injury on the right or a car hitting them on the left, because that can also be considered injury. So that is a huge one. And if you've run more than 5 races, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And you know you want to tell those people to knock it off as well. All right, so here we go with some aid station decorum. If your 5K race has drink stations en route, then avoid the urge to dive for the table to snatch a drink because you could easily cut other runners up, causing an accident. The race organizers will have done their calculations and there will be more than enough to drink for everyone most of the time. If possible, try to position yourself on the right side of the road to pick up the drink before you arrive at the table. Before you discard your cup or bottle, be sure to check around you and throw to the side of the course. Nobody wants a face full of sports drink or to roll their ankle on a bottle. Okay, very true. Funny story-ish. This did happen to me one time running a race at an aid station, and it was one where there was tables to the left and tables to the right, so there was space. For whatever reason, this person on my left got their drink from the left, but they decided to discard their cup to the right. Well, they took one sip of it and chucked it. And the cup hit me directly in the side of the head, spilling water all over me. And the person never even looked, never even knew that they pegged me with their cup of water. I'm just glad it was water and it wasn't sports drink. It was a hot race too, so it actually felt kind of good. But I remember thinking to myself, it's like, wow, you know, that was interesting. Thank you so much for not looking at all and just chucking your cup to the side. So yeah, I have been hit by a wayward cup from an aid station. Again, looking back on it, it's funny. At the moment, I was thinking, that's not cool at all, man. The next one, and again, we've talked about this one before in various issues. Every racing article and every race director and every racing thing ever will tell you to unplug your music. What they say, you may train with tunes, but it's best to unplug your iPod or MP3 player when racing. Many races don't allow runners to wear headphones. They all say that, but no one's going to kick you off for it due to safety reasons. You need to be aware of what's going on around you, and with your headphones on, you may not be able to hear traffic, race marshals, or fellow runners. You do you. If you want to run naked, run naked. If you have to have your music, have your music. I'm not going to tell you how to live. I'm a music person, so here I am in open defiance of this particular piece of runner's etiquette. Open defiance. I'm not doing it. Take that. Anyway, this is a funny one. Sociable spitting. As runners, there are times when we have to do things that would be considered socially unacceptable in any other context, such as spitting and firing snot from your nose. Sometimes you just have to do these things in a race, and whilst nobody can begrudge you, just be sure to ensure that you are courteous to other runners when you do. If possible, move to the side of the road to expel your spitball or snot rocket, or try to wait until there are no other runners in close proximity. For me, when it gets cold outside, which we've had some cold days and mornings, my nose starts running like a faucet. So I am constantly kind of spitting out the snot that's draining down my throat. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be too graphic. That's just seriously the situation. So this is a thing. I stay running to the right. I always aim for the grass. I don't spit on the course. No, I don't want to do that. I do think it's gross, and I'm sorry for it, but I will do my best to make sure it's off the side of the road. Not everyone will give you that courtesy. So just be aware. There are runners who will just hawk that loogie right up on the course. I mean, if you step on it, it's just your shoe, but I understand it's a gross thought altogether. So best to avoid it. And if you're one of the people doing it, will you just please aim for the grass? I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much. And then their last one from this list, finish line formalities. Despite the euphoria that you may feel as you cross the finish line, try to avoid stopping suddenly. Keep moving forward along the finishing funnel so that you don't cause a jam. The space you leave behind you needs to be there so that other runners who are finishing have somewhere to go. This is not really a big problem. I can't remember. There is one race. Oh, I feel like it's been within the last year for me, where for whatever reason, and I think it was just the sheer volume of people, and it was the fact that people giving out medals were understaffed and rather slow. I think they were like the medal ribbons were all tangled, but it was big to do to try and get through the finishing chute. And yeah, people were kind of crossing the finish line and slamming into the backs of the people who were just trying to get their medal and their bottle of water and moving out of there. So it's definitely an issue. It can happen. If you can do anything to avoid it, please do. But I understand, reality is what reality is, that sometimes it's an unavoidable issue. So that is what they listed as race etiquette for 5Ks. I thought it was a great race. We've got some here that are listed for marathon. There's definitely some repeat. So if it's a repeat, I'm not going to dwell on it much. But the first one they say for marathon running, and it's just like the last one, know your pace. Okay, get in your pace group. Stay kind of, this sounds bad. And I don't mean it to sound bad, but kind of stay where you belong. Now, look, if you signed up for a race 6 months in advance, and you signed up for a 4.5-hour marathon, and you for 6 months trained your butt off, but you never changed with them that you think now you could do it in 3:45. Like, I get that. And so if you think you can run it faster, like legitimately, then, maybe move up a few pace groups. But I think overall, for most of us, for the people who kind of, they have a pretty good idea where they're going to be, stay in your range. Stay in the range. It's all stay in the range. The next one for this is overtake on the left. So we've been over that. It's just like traffic, y'all. There's the passing lane and there's the slow lane. And there's definitely plenty of races where, for whatever reason, people want to run on the left side of the road. And that makes it a little more difficult depending on the race and depending on how wide your lanes are. It just makes it a little more difficult to pass someone. So just try and be aware. Try if you found your happy pace and you're cruising right along, but there could be faster runners behind you, try and stay a little right. Just try and make sure they got a little bit of room, a little window on the left, so that if a faster runner comes along, they can get around you with no problem. Okay? Again, just a little common courtesy. And this one says, I'm going to read this one, allow some breathing room. Give your fellow runners some room to move by not riding their tailwind. If you aren't going to win the race, it's highly unlikely you need to sit right on someone else's heels in case they make a break for the finish line. Sometimes it helps to manage your pace by locking onto a fellow runner. Consequently, this can be annoying for them, but it happens. Just don't latch on so closely that they can feel you breathing on their neck. This is interesting, and I'll be totally honest, because I am anything but a perfect runner. I am guilty. I am guilty of this. There have been times in races I will find someone and their pace just matches what I want to be doing just perfectly. So I kind of use them as almost my measuring stick of, if I can stick with them and I can stick right here, then I'm exactly where I want to be. And now that I read this, and I mean, the thought had crossed my mind before, but it was a thought easily dismissed. Yeah, you know what? They probably do know that there is a guy right behind them breathing heavily, just right on their tail. And I'm not trying to pass them. I'm not doing anything except following them consistently, left, right down the road. That probably can be a little annoying. And so that is definitely a mistake I have made. I acknowledge that I have made this mistake, and I'm going to do my best to maybe kind of off center with them a little bit, or just make it, maybe fall back a couple steps so that then when I match their pace, I'm not directly on them. I'm back, 15, 20 feet, whatever. And then I can try and match it from there. So that's definitely something I'm guilty of, and definitely something that I was happy to read about so that I know that I'm doing this now and I can try and do better at it. Another one that says, don't run three abreast. And then this one I thought was interesting. It says, call runner back. And again, it doesn't pertain to every race, but it does pertain to one or two, especially if it's an out and back course. Okay, so if you're running an out and back where everyone shares the same trail or the same road, and eventually you're going to be going against traffic, that's where this pertains to. Call runner back. If you're running a narrow out and back course and you see the lead runner returning, give the runners behind you a heads up. Yelling runner back is a common warning for other runners to move to the left to avoid a collision with the returning runners on their right. This was hugely important during the SEQ Trail Running Series event at Hens Dam, wherever that is, where we traversed rocky, narrow mountain bike path. So yes, on a rocky, narrow mountain bike path is probably a good idea to communicate when the leader comes around. So I've definitely done this before myself. I didn't use the term runner back, but when I do see the leader coming on an out and back, I will try and let people know so they can kind of move to the side and get out of the way. I think that's another common courteous thing to do. Another one here, it says spit or snot into the grass. Been there, done that. This is an interesting one, and I agree with it. Never toss a goo packet on the road, the GU packet. You runners know what this is. This person said, I hate running through aid stations only to find myself stomping on gooey, sticky goo packets. That stickiness attaches itself to the bottom of my running shoe, and I find myself latching onto the road for the next 50 to 100 meters at least. Don't be a litter bug. Take your sticky wrappers to the race finish with you, or at the very least, find a rubbish bin. That's a garbage bin for us in America. Then at the aid station and place it inside. Yes, I have done this before where somebody dropped an unopened, brand new goo packet, and I stepped right on it full force, and that thing just went firing out of there and it all over the road. Hopefully I didn't hit a runner. I didn't know it in time, but boy, you sure know it when you hit one. And yeah, those things are nasty. That goo stuff, I've tried using it before and I just can't, because just trying to swallow that really thick stuff, it clogs me up and I couldn't breathe. So I'm not a big fan of goo. I'm even a less fan of stepping on goo and firing it all over the race course. And this one says head to the last water table. At water stations, avoid the masses and head to one of the last water tables instead of pushing your way into the masses at the first table. You can bypass the swarms of runners at the earlier tables by running past on the right and find a full cup of water at the table that's usually neglected by runners, and you won't have to elbow any runners out of the way to get a cup. The volunteers manning the last water tables will also be thrilled to see you. This one I definitely do. Not to toot my own horn, but toot toot. I always feel bad for the kid at the end of the line who no one has taken their cup of water because everyone's already grabbed it at the front. So I do this. I go to the end. It's me trying to get everyone involved. Yay! The next one, thank the volunteers. Volunteers are the lifeblood of races. That is true. Remember that they're up just as early, if not earlier, as the runners for the race day briefings and to set up water and aid tables and course signage. They're on the course marshaling, offering a friendly smile, words of encouragement, and emergency support. They deserve a kind word or two from every runner, and a simple thank you will make their day. I also extend this out to the police officers who close down the course and keep runners from mowing you over in intersections. I definitely think those men and women definitely deserve thank yous as well. And then the last one for this, are you bringing a spectator to the race? Spectators are amazing. They really make the whole race experience with their support, signs, and kind words. Furthermore, if you are bringing a spectator, remind them to stay off the race course to avoid being mowed down by runners and to pay special attention to the gaps when crossing the course. At the end of a marathon, runner doesn't have the same braking reflexes that they did at the beginning. I've seen quite a few spectators collected by runners, and the worst at a triathlon. Says, I had a friend fly over the handlebars of her bike when she hit the brakes to avoid a spectator. She fractured her shoulder and bruised the spectator. Yikes. That would be terrible. So yes, spectators are awesome and I love them. I also hate seeing them cross the course. I really don't like it at all. It annoys me. As you can tell, there's a lot of things on race day that annoy me. You do 213 races, which is where I'm at now. You're going to find things that rub you wrong. No one's right, no one's wrong. They rub you wrong. And actually, no, I take that back. The people who run 3 side by side, they're wrong. So, hey, if you're a new runner, and I know I threw a lot at you, that's just some basic running etiquette. That's going to make everyone's race day a lot more enjoyable, a little less stressful. And again, just my personal opinion. You can agree, you can disagree. I do think that we've kind of fallen out of the realm of common courtesy. Here are some ways to get it back. Maybe choose one of these. Choose one thing I said in this, and at your next race, make sure that you are not the person that does this. You're not the person that puts the goo packet on the ground. You're not the person who cuts somebody off at the aid station. You're not the person wandering side to side in front of a runner who would desperately like you to move. And, find something. Be like, okay, I'm not going to be that guy. Or I'm not going to be that person. That would be awesome. So that's where we're at. That's going to do it for this week's episode of The Back of the Pack. I think our next race is I will be at the Monster Dash Saturday morning in Overland Park. So Monster Dash 5K is the next one for me. And then after that is the Longview Half Marathon first weekend in November. So that's what's coming up for the podcast. We will have coverage. If you ever want to read about it or see the terrible pictures that I take, remember, go to www.backofthepackpodcast.com. You can read the blog about all the various races, and you can kind of keep track of everything that's going on. Again, thank you to all of our new fans from the Garmin Kansas City Marathon Expo. You guys are awesome. I'm going to ask and please beg everyone, like, share, comment, subscribe, rate. The rating system, 5 stars or whatever you feel we deserve on Spotify and iTunes are big. That's kind of where we need to grow as well, is getting people to rate the show. So if you can do that, that would be great. Also, if you would pretty please, huge favor I have to ask of you. As you guys know, I was awarded the charity bib for Boston. I'm still trying to raise funds for the Boston Athletic Association charity, which promotes healthy lifestyle through running in the greater Boston area. I understand that we here in Kansas City, it's like, okay, you're raising money for a charity in Boston. How does that help me? I get it. 2 things. A, you're still donating to a really good cause. Okay, 3 things. You're donating to a really good cause. It's still a tax write-off. And then C, you send me to Boston, you're sending Kyle, you're sending the Back of the Pack podcast to cover the Boston Marathon. And I'd like to think we're going to get some tread out of this. We're going to have some fun episodes talking about Boston. I'm going to take pictures, video. You guys will see as much of the race as I can bring you. Like, I'm going to really try and give you kind of this in-depth view of the Boston Marathon that you may not otherwise get if you don't ever run the race, which I am fortunate enough to be able to do if we can raise the money to go. So it's on the website, backofthepackpodcast.com. You can definitely help with Boston, and I would appreciate it just so very much. So I am Kyle Walker. I am the host of the show. This show is brought to you by OKKC Sports, and it is produced by Katie O'Neill. We will be back next weekend. We'll talk about the Monster Dash, and we'll just continue on in our late fall running season. So everyone have a great week of training. Be safe at your next race. We'll see you next week.